it's the January the 6th, 2021, and of course it's a Wednesday. Good to have you all joining us on the program this morning. Temple Asaju, and of course joining us for the conversation today, we've got Chimba Ukadike, consumer goods analyst with Vetiver Capital Management, and of course Bosin Amofaye, who is the executive editor and CEO of Frontier Africa Reports. Now let's take off with the market status for yesterday. Of course, we track these 5 key markets. Nigeria, the Nigerian Stock Exchange was down yesterday 1.83% to 40,396.14. That looks like some profit taking. And of course, the BRVM was down 0.28% yesterday as well. Egypt was up positive 0.15%. The Kenyan market, Nairobi Stock Exchange there was positive 0.30%, and of course the index is at 152.49. The JSE in South Africa was also positive on Tuesday, 0.73%. Before we touch on other stories, let's quickly get your insights on this market status. Chima, anything to say about the equity markets in Nigeria, the shifts that we saw yesterday?
Definitely, yes. So yesterday was the second trading session of the year, and we saw a reversal in positive sentiment from the previous first trading session of the year. We saw that the first session was very positive. I think we're continuing from the year 2020. Investors turned out bullishly across all sectors of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. But going into yesterday, we saw that things were quickly reversed. I think apart from the insurance sector, other sectors closed in the red. I think the investors were just being cautious, trying to maintain a cautious stance in the market. The worst hit was the banking sector, lost about 2.2% in yesterday's session, although it's still at a positive year-to-date performance for the year. But going forward, I think we should continue to see investors maintain a cautious stance because everybody's trying to make sure that they not make any mistakes as they start this year. Everybody's still trying to be cautious. So I don't think we'll see anything too drastic in any direction, positive or negative. I think we'll still continue to see cautious trading. We may see profit taking, we may see bargain hunting, but I think it would not be anything too aggressive in today's session.
But in your thoughts on the other markets, we've seen the Ivory Coast market slipping down yesterday, 0.28%, but you have Egypt, of course, Kenya and South Africa looking green.
Yes. If you look at South Africa, that's a bit more around the emerging markets. That's the largest securities exchange on the continent with a whole lot of correlation or link with the developed market. So with the MSCI, which is the Morgan Stanley Capital International Emerging Market Index, we saw a bit of that coming through on the second trading day of the year. That South Africa benefited from that. On the currency side, we saw a dip on the currency for the rand yesterday, which also investors were a little bit concerned about the coronavirus impact in South Africa and whether the promise by Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines will come in very quickly to South Africa, which is now the hottest spot for the virus on the continent. We don't know how soon this will happen, but Pfizer has promised that its own version of the vaccine will come to South Africa anytime soon and will come at a discounted $10 value. So the currency market took a beating on that, which was the rand. But the stock market remained very strong, as you explained, you showed us earlier, 60,000 on the all-share index. If you look at Ivory Coast, yesterday, the Ivorian market, the BRVM, rejigged its top what you call the BRVM 10 index, which is the top 10 index, which is something like Nigeria's NSE 30. In the manner of speaking, they brought in new companies that I think that also impacted that regional exchange in West Africa. Right. The North African market was a little bit, again, the currency, the pound remained very sluggish, had lost about 2.8% over the last 1 year, according to Bloomberg News this morning. I mean, the Egyptian pound. against the US dollar. So a little bit of a softening in this market. But again, it's too early in the day. By the way, it's just the third trading day of the year. So we still have 360 days more to go.
I mean, the South African story, and of course, Pfizer is a major story, something that we will be touching on later on the show. But let's move up to East Africa now, where the World Bank, yesterday, they actually released the report. Of course, the media took it on. World Bank is explaining that the world will see a 4% expansion in global economy this year. There's a projection for for Sub-Saharan Africa, the key markets there, Angola, Nigeria, and of course, South Africa in focus. We'll touch on that. Kenya also, the Transport Authority offers a license to 29 companies for the cashless fare service. That's something that Safaricom is heavily involved in. Then you have Cabaseed investors to propose takeover of BOC Kenya come January 29th, when the annual general meeting will be holding. And in Tanzania, the Mkombozi Bank plans to raise a 15.4 billion in rights issue, and we are tracking Uganda's inflation, which also softened by some 3.6% for December. That's like some kind of a decline from 3.7% that they had recorded in the preceding month. Bosun, give us your thoughts on these. What do you make of the World Bank story, number one?
I think I will defer Chima to speak on the World Bank report. I'll speak a little bit more to some of the stories within the East African corridor, again with the consolidation of the banking sector with the BOC Kenya. We've seen a whole lot of this over the last 1 year, 2 years. So the banking sector in Kenya, from big banks like Equity Bank, to smaller ones like the BOC, the consolidation, the mergers and acquisitions continue, not just within East Africa, but also across the Central Africa, with a few Nigerian banks crossing over the borders to the East African corridor and being part of that, like Access Bank. So that is one story. Inflation is coming through massively in this week. PMIs are also coming through from around the world. We haven't seen much of African PMIs, but what I noticed was that a raft of PMIs from Europe and elsewhere in the world were coming through. But speaking to inflation, the Uganda inflation, the uptick was not as strong as we've seen in other jurisdictions, at least yet. Again, because of the food production locally that helps keep food inflation at a bit of a very tepid level. It will be interesting to see what Nigeria's December inflation looks like. I'm sure Uchima is a whole lot more head into consumer goods and what that will mean for Nigeria with some outlook. So I'd rather say that the East African story, but I love the innovation coming through with the Kenya Transport Authority regarding using what you call a cashless payment system for bus transportation and payments by passengers. I think that is really good. If you reduce cash and folks touching currency and passing it on to each other, from passengers to the drivers and to someone else, and you're using electronic means of paying for that, that could also reduce in some measure the footprint of the virus moving through, which could be transmit through whatever. So all I need is just transfer the money, find a way to do it, and I pay for my transportation, and I don't need to touch cash, give you cash or hand touching hands or something of that nature. We all get in. I have a means of showing that I have paid for the bus. I got my ticket. I sit in, I get to my destination. Everybody's fine.
Contactless, basically.
Yes, contactless.
That is big, that the world is gradually embracing now.
I think we need it in Lagos, by the way, with the Danfos and Okadas and the Mukeke Maruas.
We'll see how that pans out with the administration. So let's hear your thoughts on the World Bank projections, Chima. I think for Sub-Saharan Africa, we're expecting some 2.7% growth this in 2021. Yes, this year, and 3.3% for South Africa, and of course Angola. It's projected that they will grow by I think 0.9%. Nigeria should be 1.1%. So basically, give us your thoughts on that. Do you agree with all of those projections, those forecasts?
Well, I think that coming into 2021, a lot of these countries already expressed hope of a rebound. I think many analysts and economists would have already expressed the optimism that we'll see a rebound in 2021. I think the World Bank reports just confirmed that. What many people will disagree or maybe argue about will be the extent of the recovery, the magnitude of the recovery. I think that I agree with the World Bank based on expectation of recovery. We know that in 2021, we are bound to see the vaccines are already out. The vaccines are being allocated in some places. But the vaccines are being made. Arrangements are being made for vaccines to be given out to countries. I know that I read an article, I think this morning, where about 100 doses or 100,000 doses are supposed to be made available to Nigeria by the end of January 2021, and with about 42 million in total supposed to get to the country by 2021. I think it is almost the same or somewhat the same for many other sub-Saharan African countries, and so this should help support the return to some sort of normalcy and the return to increased economic activity for many of these countries. Also, for as we heard from the OPEC meeting that was held yesterday, that was finished yesterday, it was cited that the increased oil prices, the hope we're seeing in terms of oil pricing is coming on the back of the improved or the allocation of vaccines, and the hope that the vaccines have brought to increase to the global economy. So we expect to see a lot more interactions, a lot more production, a lot more economic activities. And since Nigeria is very oil dependent, it should filter into our economy as well and help see some sort of growth in 2021. Whether that will be above the 1.1 that the World Bank has projected or not, I don't think I can speak very well to that, but I do agree that we'll see growth for the year in 2021.
All right, let's move on now to West Africa. We, of course, NERC Nigeria yesterday, the news broke that they've approved a 50% hike in electricity tariff, but then again, the data put out a statement that there hasn't been any approval for such. Then you mentioned OPEC earlier, Chima. Nigeria is to complete all production compensation by March 2021. Of course, Peacemas, which is a transport company in Nigeria, also buys up some 313.3 million units of C&I Leasing redeemable convertible loan. This is a company, C&I Leasing is a company listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and Peacemas is buying over the share of a particular subsidiary known as Neoma Africa Fund LLC. Now, Ghana oil production is to peak at 297,190 barrels per day in 2027. And of course, we know that the brewer, the brewer Solibra diversifies into wine, which is a distillery business now, with the purchase of Sicodis. Chima, let me come to you quickly with equities again, and that will be the story of Peacemas, which is buying over some 313.3 million units of shares. I understand that at the end of the day, they're going to have up to 50 or more than 50% of stake in C&I Leasing. What do you make of that story?
I think it is a very good story or good development for Peacemas. I know that Peacemas, all I've seen for Peacemas, I think I've seen their buses on the road. I think they're majorly been into land transportation of people, of goods, and the likes. So I think this is a very good, because C&I Leasing is majorly into marine shipping, as I'm aware. So I think this is a very good development in terms of diversification. For example, we know that with the uncertainties that around the land borders and the land borders, we saw that a lot of companies diverted towards shipping, towards more sea transport for their goods. They depend a lot on sea transport. So I think that this is a good development for Peacemas and for C&I Leasing, giving the injection of cash into its business. I think that diversification into sea-based transportation is definitely a good one for the company. Speaking to...
Yeah, just before I go to bossing, I was wondering if you can actually speak to the NERC story too, where it says there hasn't been any approval for a 50% tariff hike.
I think there has been a lot of back and forth concerning the tariff hike. We've heard, I think it was about in February last year, they said they were going to bring a sort of hike. It was supposed to take effect in April. It was delayed. It was not delayed. There's been a lot of confusion concerning the tariff and the tariff hike, as it were. We cannot deny that it is very, with inflation going as high as it has gone, and prices and consumers suffering from pressured wallets, the way we have in 2020 and even before that, it is a very good thing. I think it will be very good for the tariff to be held back. There's also another news or some other news that says that it will be, the tariff hike is not supposed to affect low income areas. How that would work, I'm not sure. But then and I'm not even sure if that is legit news. But that would speak to how it would affect consumers as it is implemented. But I think we should also look at it in terms of the producers of electricity or the distributors. These guys, it has been known for a while that they do not charge cost-reflective tariffs. It's a business, and they should be in it to make profits. So if they are not able to charge cost-reflective tariffs and they cannot impose, there are even other challenges as getting the money, even after charging lower tariffs, getting the money from consumers is also a big deal for many of them. So I think that there should be some sort of balance. We should look to maybe some structural deficiencies that have been affecting these guys, or look to a sort of balance that can help the producers and the consumers alike. I think there's something that can be done so that the consumers are not suffering too much and the producers are not making consistent losses, because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it's a business.
One of the anchor points for this balance that you're referring to, I guess, will be the metering program, which they have to up their ante on. Bosin, before we move to Southern Africa and North Africa, because I know we're running out of time, would you like to touch on the oil producers, OPEC, Nigeria, and of course Ghana's oil production projection?
Yes, I think Nigeria took a very a good position by supporting a rollover of the existing production quota, and we're also happy for the New Year gifts. That's the way the Alexander Novak, the Russian Prime Minister, described the 1 million barrels per day cutback that Saudi Arabia unilaterally decided to implement between February and March. That will help push prices. This money will send Brent crude close to $54 per barrel. That's good news for Nigeria, whose budget was around $40 per barrel. So we can use additional $14 per barrel on the table. So it was a good position Nigeria made. The oil minister will expect to get more clarity on how Nigeria is expecting to meet the compensation outstanding by March. We expect to hear from, now that the meeting is over at OPEC, we expect to hear more clarification from them, or at least from the NNPC, by the way, on that will be implemented. But touching on very quickly for just about a minute on the electricity and the NERC, there's no way we're going to resolve this issue unless we just do full privatization and deregulation of that particular sector. That's the only way. Government is holding some 30-something% of the discos, about another 40% from the gencos. They'll be holding these companies, and they're not allowing the real operators who know how to do business, who are willing to do the real metering, who are ready to do the right enumeration to come into the business. So the government needs to just let go and just be a regulator, and just the one who just be a referee and let the guys be on the field of play. As long as government is holding 30% or 40% here, labor is on this side as well. You're not sure whose side we're on. So as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing was messy yesterday by the NERC explaining there was no 50% parity. So, but who belongs to class A, B, C, and D? How many Nigerians know what class they belong? As far as electricity, we want electricity, we want to pay for it. I don't want all this classes stayed. If you want to classify, let's just have the whole business done. So as long as government goes out and you have both local and foreign power companies who knows how to do the business of electricity, who can generate, distribute, provide entire value chain, then we're in good business. But as long as government is trying to fund the discos, we've been on this electricity tariff thing for so long, and personally, I think I'm getting tired of it. Let's just deregulate and let it go, like the downstream oil sector. Let me buy my petrol at whatever price it is at whatever filling station, depending on quality and what have you. I'll do the same thing for electricity as well. There's no way you can have the whole of Lagos, for example, has only 2 power distribution companies. That's too massive. It's too massive. And the Marshall local government alone in Lagos can take a whole 1 distribution companies if you have to do it, and they will make money.
Absolutely. Right.
Oh, sorry, my.
Fine. Okay, let's choose some stories from South Africa and, of course, North Africa. South Africa, the vaccine is #1 story there. We've got the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. This company is offering the Southern Africa a discounted $10 per dose of its product. That's the vaccine. And of course, we understand that they are classified as a middle-income country, and of course, they are rejecting the offer of $10. Whatever the country wants, eventually, we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Santam is assessing COVID-19 business interruption claims, and of course, BSA, that's Botswana Stock Exchange. We have a story on the Lucara Diamond getting the license of renewal from Caraway Mine till 2046. That's a long time. Then you have Universal Music planning Africa expansion to tap streaming growth. Then there's an update that we'll be getting about the MTN, Vodacom, and Orange South Africa eventually. Bosun, let's start with you. Quickly give us your thoughts on whichever your pick is on this cocktail of stories that we have on our front.
I know we have quite a bit on the corporate side and all that, but I think I'll just stick with the vaccine story for just about a minute, considering the time spent on the show again, because the vaccine is at the center of everything, either in the UK. Now Nigeria is having an increased number of infestations. South Africa needs this as much as as quickly as they can get. I seem a little bit, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with some of the sound bites and news item I'm getting on the wire. For example, yesterday, some scientists saying that the current vaccine will not be able to cure or be useful in South Africa because of the variants that they have there. I don't like that piece of news. And I saw that overnight. Then there's another one that India says is blocking the AstraZeneca Oxford University in the UK's vaccine from getting to South Africa until the Indians have inoculate hundreds of their own millions, that they are not willing to let it be exported to South Africa. I'm beginning to get a little bit uncomfortable with some of this news coming through that looks like Africa will be allowed to suffer a whole lot more before the rest of the first world. So are we going to do this like developed world and first world, second or third world? I don't think that is fair. I think there should be a measure in which, and I love the whole thing, if you do a discount at $10 per dose, that's good for South Africa. That'll be good for Nigeria and elsewhere. But there needs to be an equitable distribution of this and see that every part of the world is important. No part is more important than the other. Already, we understand, however, that in Europe and in places like London and the US, the footprint is so more exponential. So you need to do massively on that. But not to say that perhaps we're not getting it until April, maybe even June.
Chima, your thoughts on the vaccine? I mean, Nigeria is also anticipating that no country in West Africa has gotten that as of now.
Yes, I agree with Bosun. I think the distribution of the vaccine should be equitable. I think no life is more important than another life. Although we need to give precedence to some people who have. So, for example, the vaccines that are coming to Nigeria, I've seen the article that says presidents will be giving to frontliners and first responders before we get to old people and all that. So, but I think that we should, if we can afford the vaccine, if you can afford the vaccine, I think it should be made available to all that can afford, and then presidents should be giving to those that are unable to afford, so that I think it is more equitable in that manner. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, so we've run out of time, quite all right. But let's look at North African markets. Of course, Egypt's non-oil private sector PMI, that I think is regularly been published by markets, IHS Markets, yes. So they have announced the PMI decline, which is now at 48.2 as of December 2020. November was 50.9. So Egypt's FX reserves also hit some $40.06 billion, and there's a projection that it will touch 44 billion this year. AT securitization obtains FRA approval to issue second securitized bonds. And of course, in Tunisia, Alpha Hamdi is the new CEO of Tunisair. And of course, Morocco opens call for 400 MWP megawatts per North solar PV2 project. Bosin, what do you make of that?
I think the PMI will start coming through very quickly. I'm sure we have our own outlook here on Nigeria's PMI. That should come through any day soon, at least from the central bank and from Stanbic IBTC, I guess, and FBN Capital or FBN Quest.
We already have that of FBN.
Expect that to come in already. Yes, so that's already on the street. I think we'll have more time to drill down into that tomorrow and look at a bit of the component. But it's also good news to have a new CEO at the Tunis airline. I think it's going to be a way moving forward for them as well. Congratulations. It's a tough time for aviation folks all over, everywhere in the world, by the way.
That's Chima. Let's quickly get your thoughts on the Egypt's FX reserves. I mean, if you place Nigeria and Egypt side by side, can you juxtapose what we have?
Thank you. I am not exactly very familiar with the Egyptian markets, but I can say that for the Nigerian market, I think we are starting to see some good days. I know that for our budget, we benchmarked oil price at $40, and given that it's now trading at 50 around 50 levels, and that the oil makes up a lot of our FX inflows. I think that we should be more optimistic and more hopeful. I think we may be seeing better days ahead. Not to overrule the production cuts that we are supposed to implement until March, but I think ahead of that we should start to see better days ahead, especially given that the vaccines in play. We are going to be seeing a lot more global economic activity, and we should be able to see stable production or stable demand and stable prices. So I think Nigeria is in a good position. I think it's also good for Egypt that they are around, I think, $40 billion. I think Nigeria should be around 30 levels. But I think that going forward, we should be getting into a more stable territory.
I mean, given all the reforms that we've been seeing in Nigeria locally lately, there should be a bit of an uptick in the FX reserves going forward.
All at 54. That's good news.
Yeah, gold.
Currently at about $35 billion. I'm sure maybe we should be able to see 40 anytime soon. But again, with the way we defend the Naira, it's another conversation entirely. So.
All of that depends again on crude oil. Anyways, it's been a good show. Good time to have you, Chinma Ukadike, consumer goods analyst at Vetiva Capital Management. Thanks a great deal for being with us on the show today. And of course, Bosin Omofaye, executive editor and CEO of Frontier Africa Report. You took a switch today. Thank you. And I'm Temple Asaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.